This is the Rita Cosby Show.
Their rhetoric and their actions have responsibilities. And all I can think about is tomorrow we're going to see the old dog and pony show with the January 6th committee, and they're going to go after the comments that President Trump made. Remember President Trump making the statements, go peacefully, protest, go patriotically, and they're saying that those comments are what incited the rioters on January 6th. And yet, if you listen to the comments coming from the left, since that leak from the Supreme Court Roe v. Wade, that draft, we still haven't even gotten the official decision yet. The left went crazy. The left was going crazy on the Supreme Court even before this. And today we saw some very serious consequences. And yet the left would like you to believe that everything is January 6th and anything they say is basically no problem. And that double standard is disgusting, and it is shameful, and it is outrageous. Tomorrow we're going to see the whole dog and pony show. They're going to put out different people and say, oh gosh, isn't this terrible? Look, Trump said this and so said this, and this is what happened. And they're going to say words have actions. And yet today, are you kidding me? We go back and we listen to some of the statements that we have heard from a number of Democrats in just the last few days, even today, after this big bombshell and this horrible thing of this California guy who shows up at the home of Justice Kavanaugh. And tonight, this is so disgusting. Ruth Sent Us, this group called Ruth Sent Us, was planning protests tonight outside of Justice Kavanaugh's house. And they don't regret putting out his home address. They don't regret protesting, even though it is illegal to protest in front of a justice's home to try to sway his opinion. You shouldn't be putting out his address either. That is outrageous. And this guy who planned to kill Justice Brett Kavanaugh said, guess what? Guess where I found his home address? It was online, because groups like this Ruth Sent Us and these other groups are out there putting the address of the Supreme Court justices online because they weren't happy with the draft leak, that decision leak that came out. We haven't even heard from the high court yet in terms of what it's going to rule. And already they're saying, by the way, in the last few hours, this is really scary. They are saying that the National Guard is going to be on high alert in the United States, because when that decision comes down, and if it is the same as what we heard in the leak, in other words, potentially overturning Roe v. Wade and sending the decisions back to the states, they say that there could be extreme violence coming from many of these ultra left-leaning groups who will be upset by this. And yet today, we are not hearing them come out and condemn this. Condemn what we are hearing now, that there was this man, a 26-year-old guy, shows up at the home of Justice Kavanaugh. First, he's basically loaded for bear. I want to talk about some of the things that this guy had on him in his little backpack. This is really frightening. Clearly a guy who's off his rocker, who is unstable, and he was angry at the leak, the Supreme Court leak. Shows up at his home. Again, he gets the address online because these crazy groups put out their home addresses, which is outrageous. And in this guy's backpack, there's a knife, there are ammunitions, there's a hammer, there's a crowbar, there are zip ties, there are a whole bunch of other items. And this guy, in no uncertain terms, said his plan was to kill Justice Brett Kavanaugh and then maybe take his own life. And he literally took a cab. He gets out about 1 o'clock in the morning last night, gets in front of his house, sees these U.S. Marshals, and walks out of the cab, heads towards the house. Then he calls authorities, thank goodness, and basically said, I'm about to do something really bad. I'm having suicidal thoughts, and I'm very concerned. He sees these very heavily armed U.S. Marshals. Thank goodness that were there. Anybody who says defund the police, shame on you. And that basically made him say, well, maybe I should call, maybe I should do something. I'm having these horrible thoughts. Luckily, he was immediately arrested and taken into custody. But can you imagine how scary this is for Justice Brett Kavanaugh and for anybody else on the high court? That now this loony Kazuni, who said he was so upset at the leak and the decisions and was so angry about it. And where is the left tonight? Why are they not out there absolutely condemning this, retracting any of their prior statements and saying that maybe some of their rhetoric contributed to what we are now seeing as a result today? Somebody who is deranged, who is unstable, and was taking cues from clearly the left because he was very upset at the fact that he had ruled this way on the Supreme Court leak. But you don't hear the left ever saying that. And tomorrow night, we're going to see the biggest, facade and the biggest joke of all. They're going to be out there and they're going to be saying, oh, well, Donald Trump saying let's peacefully and patriotically protest. That's what sparked the riots. Are you kidding me? They should just crawl up and go back home and not even put on 1 minute of their proceedings. That's what I think. And I want to hear from you tonight. 1-800-848-9222. 1-800-848-9222. Well, here is a little bit from constitutional scholar Jonathan Turley, one of the best legal minds out there. And he said, clearly, this anger, especially from the left, is now putting the high court justices, their lives at risk big time.
A person should not have to wonder if he can both serve and survive on the United States Supreme Court. But it's getting to a point where this age of rage is putting all of our justices and judges in fear of themselves and their families in terms of an attack. And that has an impact on the rule of law. It is something that is going to discourage others from going to serve on the court.
Yeah, who wants to go on the Supreme Court now? What, you want your home address out there? Brett Kavanaugh has little kids, too. I mean, how scary is that to know? And thank goodness this guy basically turned himself in. What if he didn't turn himself in? What if he got inside Brett Kavanaugh's house and he had zip ties and he had a knife and he had a gun? I mean, this to me is so outrageous. And then again tomorrow, we're going to see this dog and pony show and basically saying Trump's words, peacefully and patriotically protest. Oh, yeah, that really sparked the riots when what you said was so inflammatory before this. 1-800-848-9222. 1-800-848-9222. Here is a little bit more from Jonathan Turley, because remember, when the White House was asked about some of the original protests that happened right after the leak, they didn't condemn it. They didn't scold anybody. They said, peaceful protests are okay. And the reporters were like, wait. They're shouting vile things outside their home. They're going to their house. They're putting out their home addresses. Don't you understand how serious and how dangerous this is? And yet they did nothing. They were like, oh, it's almost like it was like the summer of 2020. Remember Ali Veshi from MSNBC, who was the reporter on MSNBC, the host out there? And he was in the middle of right behind where like the Minnesota police station was on fire, and it looked like it was a war zone. I've been in war zones. It looked just like that, right? It was like bombs everywhere and everything. And he's like, boy, it's a nice day out here in Minneapolis. It was like, what? Wait. Are you looking at what's behind you? They're burning down a police station. They're throwing things. They're burning things. Well, that's how the White House was acting when the leak came out. Remember? They were like, oh, no big deal. People are just exercising their freedom of speech. You know darn well if it was the other way around, and if it was a conservative who was out there protesting, they would say, oh, shame on them, shame on them. But when it came down to their side protesting, they did not condemn it. They didn't condemn the riots, and they didn't condemn the people protesting outside the justices' houses.